Hail, commanders! Hail, legions of freedom! I come this day in living awareness of the light that is within thee, and I come that I might bring you into greater contact with that light, that the flame of freedom may be your own, and that as it becomes yours, it may be conveyed and passed to others who require it. I am reminded now of the saying quite common to mankind, that coming events cast their shadows before them. Let it be done now, that coming events blaze their light before them. For in man's time of karma-making action, mankind have unfortunately looked for the most dire calamities to happen, so that throughout the world there are those who thrive while intimidating mankind with the vibratory action of fear. This is not the intent of the ascended masters, for the word has gone forth, perfect love casteth out all fear, for fear hath torment, inasmuch as it is not the divine intent to see that mankind should suffer, but find their freedom from all pain. It is the will of God in this day that mankind be endowed with a greater degree of cosmic understanding, that by purifying their souls from the vibratory action of fear, they may rise into the arms of perfect love, and so obtain their victory. Now the ascended masters with whom I serve are most practical men, and goddesses indeed, insofar as the feminine aspect thereof is concerned. You are familiar, no doubt, with some of these blessed beings. This evening you will hear the precious words dropping from the lips of the Goddess of Liberty. I stand here now trembling with joy, and you may say to me, if you will, how can you, an ascended being, tremble? Note that I said trembling with joy in anticipation of her vibratory action released anywhere in the universe. For this magnificent woman of God, bearing the vibratory action of cosmic liberty, is indeed a soul to be honored, to whom I joyously pay tribute. Nobility itself, as it descends from the divine presence into the chalice of an individual, is a gift fairer yet than the most wondrous of jewels. The jewels of the sacred fire, which are imparted to mankind, are treasures of inestimable value. For who could place a value upon the sacred blue jewel given and conveyed by Archangel Michael as a source of God protection to the wearer? I ask you, who could place a value upon a holy amethyst charged with the vibratory action of the violet fire of freedom's love? Who could place a price upon a precious topaz? Blessed ones, charged with illumination's flame. Do you realize then how very near I am unto each one of you as a source of your freedom? At first, some among mankind are slightly disconcerted, coming as they do from the orthodox faiths of the world, with the idea of an individual being the source of freedom. Well, blessed ones, I did not declare that I was the source of freedom, for I am but an exponent of freedom, and the momentum which I have conveyed to me from time to time comes forth from the Godhead, and is indeed the treasure of every life stream. It is my joy to externalize the flame of freedom, and I am but a vehicle through which the divine manifestation occurs. Understanding is required, blessed ones, by every individual under the sun, and I am certain that if all men upon earth were to have the Christ understanding which is given to the ascended masters, that all problems upon earth would cease to be. Therefore, in days of old, the admonishment went forth, with all thy getting, get understanding. I am certain that you must realize that it is but ignorance that acts when a man speaks and declares that words of truth are not being uttered through this channel. I am sure you must realize that it is but ignorance that states that the activity of the I Am Presence is but a human creation. I am sure that you must realize that it is but ignorance that acts when individuals separate themselves from this group for any reason whatsoever. And yet, blessed ones, this occurs as a result of the wrong thought entering into their consciousness, which temporarily seems right to them. It also occurs frequently through fear, for individuals are actually afraid for themselves. If they had the high divine courage which the great law demands, they would recognize that a holy motive, completely pure and free from evil intent, would not endanger anyone, certainly not their own blessed souls. They would realize that they could safely place themselves upon my altar and be assured of safe conduct unto the presence of God. And yet there are individuals who still seem to feel that I am but a legendary figure that existed in the Middle Ages and in medieval times, and was somewhat of a charlatan, a pretender. Well, blessed ones, I am not concerned with mankind's thoughts of error, for I have outlived many who have thought me a pretender. And I say this with no degree of pride, but I say it with joy in the immortal life which God has given to me, for I know that that which I have done, mankind also can do, and for themselves pierce the veil of delusion and obtain entree into God's wonderful kingdom, sharing then the joys which I share, and having those blessings become their own. If it were the other way around, and I had obtained all of these wonderful treasures, and mankind, even those who deemed themselves my enemies, were to be denied these privileges, I should not rest comfortably in the ascended octave. But because I know that it is but a matter of time and circumstance ere all will come to the same knowledge which I have, I can bide my time in patience and wait for the souls of my enemies to acknowledge that God has loved me even as he loves them. Therefore I say with no hypocritical charity that my love goes out to the world to honor the flame of freedom for all mankind and to help and assist in the deliverance of mankind from the delusions of life which prevent the manifestation in their world of that God happiness which he intends all to share. Now I am certain that you do not require me to tell you today that there are multitudes in this city who would be benefited by this teaching if it were possible for them to accept it. But in view of the fact that only certain individuals are currently ready to receive it and to appreciate it, we must convey these jewels to them and be content to rest, knowing that each individual will ultimately be guided unerringly to the correct course, although we must admit that many are turned by the wayside into byways and thickets that are full of thorns and pierced by delusions which indeed cause them much distress. The great law, blessed ones, is not a car of juggernaut, rolling over human lives and crushing out of them their life's energy. The great law is actually a law of divine mercy, but it has more than one facet. The great law, functioning in the plane of mercy, is beloved by mankind, for, as was said of old, it droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the earth beneath, and is twice blessed, blessing him who gives and him who receives. But it is ever so necessary, if the law is to be properly enforced, that the law also function to see that the experiences of mankind which are discordant bring to them sufficient pain to attract their attention to the fact that they are not walking in a correct manner. Therefore, mankind must occasionally kick against the pricks of the great law, and by their own feeling of emptiness and loneliness, find that they must embrace the deity to a greater degree, for there is the only pathway that lies to freedom's gates and to the city of our God. So long as man pursues lesser goals, the range of his experiences must be confined to the mundane, and perhaps a little above that. But when mankind begins to seek with all of their heart to understand the compassion of the universe and to be identified with it, there is a change that takes place in the aura of the individual. This is the change that alters the countenance from selfishness to selflessness, that alters the thoughts from orientation around the ego to orientation around the ages. Do you see, beloved ones, the Ancient of Days, the Eternal Father, with all of his great love, has placed here in the world of form, as in the shell of an oyster, the sacred center of man's being, his blessed heart, and with the unfolding of his experiences, man finds that the grains of sand are trapped in the oyster, and that the pearl surrounds the center of his being, weaving in the grains of sand and covering them all with a wonderful iridescence which itself causes the experiences to be transmuted into pure, milk-white, liquid light, and polishes the soul of mankind to become the pearl of great price, all out of the vision of mankind, or the range of their consciousness. I have watched down through the ages, and I have noted that obscure individuals have contributed marvelously to the spiritual development and worth of their community without ever being recognized in their time for any significant development whatsoever. And as I observed the unfoldment of Die Meistersinger von Nuremberg in your midst, and saw the scene involving the markings of Beckmesser, I was reminded of the very phony markings which mankind frequently occur and record against one another. Mankind, in seeking for perfection in others, expect that perfection to be without flaw. When they measure themselves, they are most content to utilize the quality of mercy. But oftentimes, when measuring others, they forget about it. Precious ones, mankind then must recognize that they are not always able to see all the love and kindness that is generated within human hearts. And in attempting to assess and to measure other individuals, they are so prone to err, which brings about a state of bondage. And this, dear hearts, is another subject that I would call to your attention. When individuals take upon themselves the office of judgment of another life stream, they immediately become responsible for that life stream that they choose to judge. And they become identified with that one and are sometimes called on at night to assist that one in a most unusual manner to try to find their freedom. Their divine self sees to it that their energies are engaged in assisting the one whom they are judging, and therefore mankind quite frequently find that the very people that they choose to avoid seem to continually cross their path, for by their judgment they are attracting this person or others that they fancy are of like ilk into their own world. For the law seeks to purify their own world and to remove the mote from their own eye and obtain for them their perfection. Therefore utilizes other life streams in whom the negative quality may or not be manifesting in order to assist them to find their own freedom. This seems to be quite involved, but blessed ones, it is simply an outpicturing of the law, which often attracts to mankind the very things that he seeks to avoid. But I would call to your attention that herein I am referring to negative acts on the part of mankind, whereas if mankind desire to attract the spiritual radiance of God and to have positive benefits, they have but to ask their divine presence, and the gift shall be given. Human entanglements are most insidious at times, and yet mankind need not be brought under the power of any. For the great law itself seeks to free mankind from this type of foreign entanglement. I do not say that men should be aloof from the needs of others, or should be in any manner disrespectful of others, but I do say that individuals do not need to become entangled in such a manner as to tear them down or to destroy the other individual whom they seem to feel the compulsion to judge. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would have your freedom, you must be willing to have others express their freedom. You cannot in any way seek to confine mankind to a mold of your own thought, but must bless all with the fullness of that freedom which God gives to you to enjoy. I know that this is at times most difficult, particularly if there is one in a family situation very close to your heart, for whom you aspire to the highest goals, and that one does not subscribe to the beauty of our expression. Remember, dear hearts, many simply do not understand the grace that is manifesting in you or in us. They do not understand, and this is quite understandable, for they have a multitude of very bad examples before them in the world. And to the present hour, it is somewhat popular among mankind to actually look askance upon a religious individual. This is a complete refutation of the meaning of religion, which comes from the word, the Latin religio, which is to bind. And in this case, religion is intended, that is, true religion, to bind mankind unto God and to good works, which is God's work. Blessed ones, you ought then to have your freedom from every individual upon earth there is never any need to be brought under the power and domination of some life stream. For individuals must learn to exist together side by side, permitting their own God presence to be the directing authority for their world. There are some individuals who, without realizing it, seek to dominate almost hypnotically the lives of others and prevent them from having their freedom and walking forth in the light of God as they would. You must not permit others, whether in family circumstance or association, to deny you the right to serve our light, for I assure you that long after the form they wear has molded and decayed into the dust, the heavenly treasures that you have externalized in God's holy name I am will remain a credit to your own immortality and will enable you to assist generations yet unborn in the unfolding of their own latent talents. I recall well how that long before that magnificent life stream, George Washington, ever drew his first breath, I saw the brightness of his appearing upon the pages of future history, and I knew that when he came forth, he should be the one to guide the destiny of this great nation. And therefore it was with rejoicing that I welcomed his coming and stood by his side throughout his embodiment, to reappear by his side much later in the experiences on the mountainsides of your own America. This blessed life stream, whose bones, as George Washington, are entombed in Mount Vernon, today is in no way connected with the mausoleum located at that spot, but has obtained his immortal freedom in the ascension into the light. He is now indeed truly the father of his country, and those who follow me in the regeneration of this activity are his Minutemen and Minutewomen, for I have decided to also include the fair sex in this particular epitaph, a title with which I vest those who serve, men and women of the hour, who can recognize in current situations the struggles for survival that faced the men of Lexington and Concord. You must recognize that the battle for survival of this nation has not stopped since the last shot in defense of liberty was fired. But it continues to go on in many ways, both in ideological ways, in spiritual ways, and even in physical struggle. The very lifeblood and economy of this nation is often vampirized by foreign powers who seek to bring about the downfall of America and all that America stands for in the interest of personal greed, ignorance, and devotion to the atheistic causes of communism. It requires alertness on the part of every American to stand forth today and to face the hidden dangers which beset mankind. You must, blessed ones, not be overly confident and stride forth as though there were no hidden booby traps that sought to destroy your victory and all of that which you have won under such difficult situations in the past. You must stand with nobility of heart and soul, shoulder to shoulder with one another in the defense of freedom. Mankind must close ranks and not seek to bring about discordant situations, but seek to perpetuate the love ray of the ascended being. After all, blessed ones, you have had so many bad examples, and yet these individuals all resemble one another in some form or the other, whereas spiritual individuals who also resemble one another are made in the similitude of God, in whose image ye were all declared to be created. If today mankind are a far cry from that wondrous first creation, then I say the fault lies not with the stars, nor does it lie with his divine intent, nor does it lie with the ascended Master's octave, or with this activity, or some outer expression of mankind, but the fault lies directly within the thought processes of the individual, and the fact that that individual has opened the door to permit human discord to come in and blind him at the moment when he should have been calling for more light upon his own pathway, that he might see the truth as it stands before him. I would like to call your attention today, in the holy name of freedom, to the fact, blessed ones, that I am well aware that there are times when you may seem to despair of having accomplished anything significantly in your life. This is a most understandable situation, for the entire universe groaneth and travaileth together in pain, waiting to be delivered of the complete Christ ideal of perfection, and mankind in their struggles are quite frequently bearing the pain of the entire world upon their own psyche, manifesting then a certain internal dissatisfaction. They become a prey for the sinister force which seeks to take advantage of each such situation and turn it into defeat for the individual. It is necessary then that each individual shall be alert and be aware to the significance of this. This is a mental and spiritual battle for the minds and hearts of men. Quite naturally, they are going to project their thoughts at you, for the only way that they can affect you is by getting into your mind and consciousness and causing you to accept the rationalization which they project at you. You are then encouraged by them to accept the real. And for what purpose? Moria has referred to a thrust for a purpose, and I am certain you recognize that their thrust is also for a purpose. Yes, your own defeat, to tear you up, to destroy you, to cut you down as before a scythe, that they might glory and gloat over the grass that lays then dried beneath their feet. Blessed ones, you may wonder why such testers and such iniquitous manifestations exist in the universe. Well, I am certain you understand that there is nothing made that God has not created, with the best of hopes for all. And yet, through the misuse of free will, individuals have woven nets of deceit for themselves and have created and linked together a so-called almost Frankensteinian monster, which is the sinister force linked together from the most evil appearances of all men's imaginations. You will recall how that it is recorded before the flood that the imaginations of men's hearts were forever evil, and therefore the stench of mankind's misdoings rose up to heaven and before the karmic board. And the Spirit of God determined that the world should be purified by water, and therefore a flood was sent forth for the destruction of these cities and civilizations which in their iniquity were doing despite to the divine ideal. I wonder if all of you are aware also of the tremendous action that once occurred in those days, whereby mankind did perform in the name of science most terrible and frightful acts against the Godhead. For they did in those days before the flood, master generic control, whereby they were able to fuse together the seeds of men and of animals. And through this form of generic control, they produced half men and half beasts. This seemed to be a sport to some of them who, in the name of science, thought that they would be able to have servants to actually serve under them and do their every bidding. Therefore, there were four-footed creatures, blessed ones, that roamed the world, half horse and half human. All of these frightful abortions, which were completely opposed to the divine intent, were destroyed by the flood and ceased to exist. But with that manifestation of the flood and the accompanying destruction, it came to pass that the karmic board made a great fiat and declared to mankind that each seed should bear after its kind and no other, and therefore this situation and the repetition thereof has been prevented in advance by the karmic lords. This shows you then, blessed ones, the need for some restraint and control over mankind's endeavors. You see, blessed ones, there was a time when mankind were endowed by great power from God to approximate almost the control of the Godhead. For God, in his great love, proposed and disposed to give to man the power of the Creator, so that man could create at will whatsoever he desired. This, of course, was proven not to be the best part of wisdom, for mankind abused that privilege and did create the frightful abortions of the past. Precious ones, I hope that you will not misinterpret that which I am saying, for that which I am revealing to you today is revealed for a purpose, to show you that in the dreams and imaginings of man, and in the ancient and quaint photographs which you may have observed in some of the ancient and musty books of civilization, there are recorded pictures of some of these creatures, and also of beings called satyrs. I hope that you understand, precious ones, that God in his great wisdom did not foreordain that such creatures should roam the world and then be inhabited by a human soul. Therefore, I am sure that you realize the divine law could not permit such abortions to exist, and therefore was required by the law to step in and stop such action. Blessed ones, when I reveal these teachings to you in this sacred Keeper of the Flame meeting, I expect that you shall keep the confidence thereof, and shall utilize the knowledge for the admonishment of your own souls, and that you may see that the universe is filled with mysteries. Many of these mysteries have never even been hinted at by the ascended masters in times past. Now mankind, in their own conceit, seem to feel that they know all things, and yet I assure you that there are many, many things that are not known by the students even concerning the violet flame, which seems to be a fairly simple subject in your midst. Yet some individuals actually seem to feel that they can, with impunity, absent themselves from our dictations and not listen to the releases which we bring from time to time. I will admit to you that as we plan these dictations in the cosmic councils, ever so frequently we decide that a specific dictation shall contain material of an inspirational or spiritual nature which shall exhort mankind and the student body at large to a greater degree of devotion, holding them to the constant wheel of the application which must be made to receive their freedom. But then again, ever so often we drop some specific factor into the mill of our discourses, which is a very choice morsel of spiritual food and a key which will enable you to discover some of the mysteries that exist upon the planet, which show to mankind how that the need to obtain his freedom is resident in all. For no one that is embodied upon this planet today has yet won or obtained their complete freedom. All those that are here today in physical embodiment, except for certain individuals who have raised their body to a tremendous state, which is an entirely another subject, are yet waiting their release from some form of bondage into the freedom of their own ascension in the light. Therefore, certainly, mankind ought to give ear to this and to recognize that each opportunity to hear a dictation from the ascended masters ought to be taken full advantage of by those who want and have desired to have their freedom. Precious ones, I am certain that you must realize that the very phenomena of our appearance in this manner, as we are here today, is itself a most wondrous gift, full of divine grace and compassion for the student body. For I am here. I am here to give you a greater assistance to your freedom. And yet, blessed ones, if it were not for the presence of this beloved messenger, I ask you, do you think that you would be able to have the full flow of information or radiation as it is now released? You see, blessed ones, whenever we put forth an individual upon the platform before humanity in this manner, that one becomes somewhat of a target for mankind to shoot the arrows of their own hatred at. This is done absolutely without cause and in defiance of the light itself. Now, we would have a most difficult time to find an absolutely perfect person to put here. For the moment that a man becomes perfect, that one is usually taken in the ritual of their ascension. And therefore it is most important for you to realize that those who are placed in this position are ever so frequently raised to a very high state of consciousness ere the close of their embodiment. And therefore they are sometimes in a position whereby a mere expressed wish they could at a moment vanish from before your eyes and cease to perform the function which they presently then would be doing. Do you see, blessed ones, how then mankind ought to be grateful for each opportunity to hear these dictations and to be a part of the great release which we are making this afternoon? In the holy name of God, I say, do you realize how many people have been contacted by the teachings of the I Am Presence, who have actually turned aside from that presence? And I assure you, blessed ones, that those individuals will never know any genuine peace until they return to the fold of their own God presence and acknowledge that presence as supreme in their world. As your Knight Commander, I am not concerned for the glorification of myself or of beloved Moria or any of the ascended host, for we have been glorified far more by the power of God than most men ever dream of, and far more than to permit any human action to detract from his light, which is our own. Therefore, blessed ones, we have no need for the adulation of mankind. I have heard many individuals say to me, I love you, Saint Germain. I love you, Saint Germain. I love you, Saint Germain. And then turn the cold shoulder upon some individual who has a tremendous love for me. This is a brother turning the cold shoulder to a brother who is equally dear to my heart. Do you see then, blessed ones, that until a true spirit of cosmic unity permeates the atmosphere of the entire fraternity of the Keepers of the Flame, the full release of that spiritual substance of the Ascended Master Octave, which will completely unify by light the entire activity, cannot occur. Therefore, each time we take in an individual or initiate an individual of lesser consciousness to the general level of the entire group, we are in one sense detracting from the benefits of the whole. And yet, it is our wish that this be continually done. for we are sharing, as you are, the great love of our hearts with all who come to us for admission, knowing full well that in the due course of time, if they will be faithful with their application, they will win their freedom. No man can be denied his freedom who will faithfully follow the law itself, for the law is the law because of its accuracy, and it cannot err. Therefore you may be certain that regardless of outer appearances, or the words of any individual, or any voices whispering in your mind, that you shall obtain your freedom if you shall accept the truth of our words and shall walk in full faith before the heart of your own divine presence. If you cannot be denied this blessing of the ascension, if you insist upon walking our way and insist upon turning away from the discord of the world, is it not true then that you must receive your ultimate freedom? Why then will mankind give ear to those voices of the night that whisper into their consciousness, seeking to destroy their faith in their divine presence? And as I said before, for what purpose? For a purpose that must come to naught. Give ear then only to truth and to the words of the ascended masters, to the Christ consciousness, to the flame of life that shall never go out, that blazes within you. And I am certain that the forthcoming year shall be one when the fruits of freedom will be piled upon the harvest table, and mankind, even in this activity, shall rejoice as they see each significant accomplishment being tallied up before the karmic board as a step in the salvation of man. You are no doubt aware of the fact that over the years there have been gross inequities practiced in this nation against segments of the population. With the signing into law of the Civil Rights Bill, mankind have been given a very great assistance which some sections of the world do not appreciate as much as others. But I assure you that it is necessary for America that there shall be complete freedom throughout this land, for no man, nor woman, nor child can in any way be considered responsible for their own birth. Although it is true that mankind have made their bed and must lie in it, we do not in any way, under the mercy of the great law, blame any individual for the fact that they were either born into poverty or into shame or into any situation which others may deem not as desirable as their own. We recognize the freedom of every individual under the sun to obtain his ascension in the light, and we are certain that when an individual's immortal being rises into the arms of the Christ's presence, that when that one is received by God, there does not exist any being, including the greatest ascended masters, who would even dare to raise a breath of calumny against such a one, or to threaten them, or to deny them their freedom. The freedom of mankind has been hard won. Step by step, they have climbed up the ladder of accomplishment as though up a ladder of spikes. And yet there are many men today who, although they are not sung as heroes, as was the Christ by Christianity, who have had their feet pierced with these spikes upon the ladder of life, as they have sought to bestow upon their lesser brothers some tremendous gift for and on behalf of the cause of freedom. Some of these have served in a political way to bring political blessings to the land. Some have served in a scientific way to enrich the borders of medicine and science and free mankind from pain and anguish. The arts of healing have been enhanced throughout the past few years, and spiritual healing has also become a greater assistance to mankind as new techniques have been discovered and developed in the forte of the individual. Mankind then must acknowledge all these boons and blessings and recognize that inasmuch as they are the fruits of freedom, that they shall be enlarged upon. For we seek to enlarge the borders of mankind's blessings and accomplishments. We seek to enlarge the borders of communication so that new systems will be developed that even supersede the present methodology. We seek also to enlarge the transportation industry of America and the world and bring swifter and safer transportation to mankind's use and service. There exists even at this hour a means whereby thousands of lives could be saved in air travel, and yet the greedy interests of the world and the commercial interests have denied this blessing to the American people and the people of the world. The life that they could save might be their own. This is true indeed, and as karma unfolds, many of them shall find out this truth. But as Henry Ford said, the trouble with the school of experience is that the graduates are too old to go to work, and so mankind sometimes kick against the pricks, as I said before, of life, and therefore are taught the experiences in a manner that is too little and too late for either themselves or society to profit thereby. Therefore I say, in the name of God, to this holy fraternity of the Keepers of the Flame upon this Independence Day, that the hard-won liberties of the past must continue to become the hard-won liberties of the future. If this were an easy path, one that anyone could step upon without pain or without endeavor, then I do not think, as men and women, that you would find it a worthy one. For you have in your hearts a certain fiber and courage which I admire, and I recognize that it stems from the God flame within you and your devotion to that flame. This is not of your own fiber. This is not of your own strength. It is the inherent strength and weakness of your own immortal soul. It is the power of the Godhead that has been invested in you, and it is a talent and pearl of great price. You must then permit the experiences of life to weave in around you the grains of sand that seem to act as discouraging particles to your continued existence in the world of form. You must seek to transcend and supersede all that is cast as straws of stumbling and stones of stumbling in your pathway. For sometimes they are only straws that break the camel's back, and then again they are stones which are thrown with sharp cutting edges by the hands of friends. It does not matter whether friend or foe, for you must recognize that all of these act in ignorance of the great law. Do you think, blessed ones, that any individual would actually go forth and perform an act that must inevitably return as a boomerang to smite the back of his own head? Then I assure you, if mankind do not do this deliberately in the main, they certainly do it ignorantly, and they reap the full reward of each endeavor to harm another. But the Keepers of the Flame fraternity, seeking in a harmless way to bring about good to all mankind, must continue to reinforce the bulwarks of science and religion, of culture and of honor in man and society. They must seek in their own lives to enrich themselves by new achievements of appreciation in the field of music and art and beauty. They must seek also for greater measures of attunement with their own divine presence, and as Al Moria has said, some degree of co-measurement, whereby they no longer set the scale of their values in accordance with the world's own substandards by cosmic law, but according to the great interplanetary councils, the galactic councils, the solar councils, and the mighty power of light from out the great central sun. There comes now, at the close of my address, into our midst on this Independence Day, a messenger from the great central sun. This great central sun messenger is clothed with a most wonderful sheath of blue-white light, a swaddling garment, as it were, that completely enfolds his being, until the only part that is visible of his being are his two hands and his beautiful countenance. His countenance is like the sun itself, shining in splendor. And as he comes into this room, I am reminded of the face of Alpha himself, for he wears yet the radiance supernal of Alpha, having come of late from his very presence. Therefore you are blessed that this great central sun messenger will bring into this room on this Independence Day a scroll of light containing a fiat for the golden age. This fiat is going to be released to the Lord Maha Chohan, and he has been charged with the responsibility of admonishing you under the proper circumstances as to just what you can do to cooperate with this fiat. Whether or not he will reveal its content in its entirety or in part, I do not yet know, for it lies wholly within his province. But I know that it is being attached to the sacred fire jewel which he placed here in this room before this conference and will remove when the conference is concluded. Therefore, blessed ones, you have been honored this day in a most significant manner, for there are many spiritual souls of great light all over the entire planetary body who would love to have the treasures that have been released to you this day, and yet they have them not. But in one sense they do, for the light that is released here can be spread over the entire earth, and I am so hopeful that by your wish and decree made to the Goddess of Liberty this evening, you will share all of your spiritual treasures with the infinite ones that are spread abroad around this planet. Do you know I did not err when I said the infinite ones, for these individuals are as much a part of the infinite one as ye are. They have yet to win their freedom and their understanding, and they are very hidebound in their own traditions. But that does not matter, for when they come to the light and are cut free, they will be every whit as good a servant as ye. Of that I am certain. And now, as I conclude this address, I have a point of passing interest which I would give to you, conveying with the fullness of the love of my heart. There is an individual in a state quite far from here as ye count space, who has served me for many a year with a tremendous increasing devotion to the light. And inasmuch as we are not this year conveying knighthood upon any, as a group en masse, I have decided, because of the tremendous love that this individual bears, to make him a knight of the Order of the Keepers of the Flame. I do not intend to announce to you his name, but I shall tell you the title which I shall confer upon him. He shall be known as Sir Valiant, and he shall receive from me a communication testifying to the truth of this. Nevertheless, I do not propose to make his name public, for I wish no element of jealousy to be given to mankind. This individual is not in this room, or in this state or area, but in another place, and I wish to pay him tribute in passing in your midst, that ye may know that I take note of each act of devotion and love that is proposed by man, that is disposed by God through man, and that is desired by mankind in the interest of the expansion of the flame of freedom, for the glory of America, for the sustaining of the light of freedom over the entire earth, for the holy cause. I say, let us stretch forth our swords of light in defense of holy truth. Let us not quaver or waver in our unerring aims toward God. Let us not, in those moments when human discord and viciousness is projected at us, for it is also projected at me, for ye are, in a sense, myself extended here, in any manner submit to all things that are less than truth. The high standard of cosmic virtue must par excellence be given to all, and all must become a part of that holy excellence. Therefore, blessed ones, I say, in the name of divine freedom, let us cry together, Excelsior! 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 I thank you in God's holy name, and I bid you good afternoon. be light, and let it expand, flooding forth in God's name I am, the power to illumine thy soul with his radiance that will make all men whole. O blessed ones, as I come forth and step across the threshold from our octave into thine, I bring with me legions of light to illumine the world with the star of the mighty presence of God coming through the doorway ajar to the world where all is light. In the cave of symbols is anchored light, but in the mighty cave of light there is that pulsating white light that changes the garments of man and transmutes the dust of human substance, of decay and rust and despair and blighted hopes, and brings to mankind the fairest radiance, which I am. And as I speak to you tonight, to tell you of that which I am, I know that that which I am is the self-same substance composing the vestures of thy being. For the sheaths of identity which drape so graciously around your form is a creation of the tiny elementals as well as the flowers which so fairly grace the earth, and therefore all are robed in the wondrous power of light's majesty. For the spinning forth of substance is itself a wondrous action of the God flame. The spinning forth of substance from the mighty world of spiritual reality into the world of form, where man is, waiting in hope the time when he can expand his tiny wings and then fly into the realms of light, the victor over all outer conditions and that which has brought about dismay. O precious ones, the love of God is around you this night, and I desire to see it intensify by light, which is a literal charge of the immortal radiance, streaming forth now then from the eyes of your God presence. It holds you individually in the firmness of the Father's own grasp. O precious ones, when doubt assails you and you fear the void of that which is unreal, know that the crystal clear mind of God encompasses all things. And this I say of the farthest star and segment of universal consciousness. There is no thing in existence anywhere that is not reached by the span of his consciousness. The mighty link of light that has an anchor point within thy heart, a thread of contact, immortal, which must not be broken by the foolishness of human reason or the ideas which men hold over the centuries and which molds them according to the pattern earthy, the Adam plan, not that which was the first Adam. Let them then be robed in the power of the second Adam, the Lord from heaven, Adam Kadmon. I say, O thou Holy One, thou mighty rushing wind of the Holy Spirit, strip from these blessed chelas the dried elements of their consciousness, those crystallizations which have not brought them comfort. Let them fly as dried leaves before a hurricane's blast, and let them be no more to hinder the light of God which must pass through them, to kindle therein the garments born of living flame, that shall a new world frame, a world of immortal body substance, born forth on wings of Christ magic, the miracle of the perfect Son of God, laid within the manger of each one's own heart to identify the part with the heart of God. The supplicant then will kneel before the eternal Creator, the creation wonderful, the nameless one who is illumined by the divinity of his being to utter the sacred name, the voice of God, the Word of God, the name of God, before whom every angelic being bows in reverence. I am. O gracious ones, will you feel now within your own world the power of your own I am presence? Will you recognize your own blessed divinity and its field of light, a field of expanding power which takes dominion over the whole earth and limits you not to any secluded spot, but causes you to be a part of all that is God's heart? O sun radiance of the eternal kingdom, I am come as the Queen of Light, in maternal awareness of the great Mother of the world. I come to remind you of Moriah's flag unfurled, a banner of peace and hope and faith, the first ray man that is somewhat as Saint Germain, a guardian of the race. In his face you see traced there the lineaments, the lines of consideration for mankind, the joviality, the conviviality of spiritual effulgence overflowing from the chalice of his heart and causing all men to start again the wondrous race that leads to the finish line, where man has regained his own rightful state and sees and perceives the crystal clear mind of God, the mighty power of the fire mist that dissolves the illusions of life and causes the wonder of God's kingdom to be manifest in the individual eunuch who bows before God only to be raised and crowned a son of light. I am come, the Queen of Light tonight, called so by the cherished host with whom I serve, to adorn the mighty banners of the ascended masters with my energies. And so as I come, I generate anew in the hearts of all a flame of quickening power that causes you to appreciate the gifts that you have held in the bowers of your heart for so long, which have seemed somewhat to be a prison, for you could not let all that was within escape and rejoin the light that is in the universe. It seemed as though you were frozen into a veil of illusion, bottled up into a jar and dammed up so that the stream could not flow. I say, let light stream forth then from the point of light in the mind of God, and let the kingdom of God be made manifest in the kingdom that is within you individually. Rejoin the mighty ocean of his loving presence and feel his loving arms encompass you as arms of light that will bear you up and bear you right into the palace of eternal bliss, not a place of illusion, not a place where God is not, but a place where he exists. O most gracious ones, as I come to you tonight, it is to bring to you a sense of eternal felicity, good faith that cannot be broken. Gracious ones, I wonder if you know how many in the ages have broken their faith and broken the troth which they made with God, and they knew not what they did. And when the Christ in Gethsemane folded his hands in sacred prayer, it was for these also that he prayed, and his voice was heard passing through the soundless air, the ethers of eternity. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And so I come to bring to you the light of God that does not fail, that ye may know what ye do, and arise as workers in the light. If ye are given the divine precepts, blessed ones, from the angel hands who serve you, and from the ascended masters, and you rend these precepts, sitting in this audience and partaking of the sacred Eucharist, the communion of the saints and immortals, and then go forth, as it were, into the sinful consciousness of the outer world, to abuse and desecrate the sanctity of your own divine self? Can this do service to God or bring about your freedom? What hath God wrought? He hath wrought the wonders of your immortal being, and yet mankind, they do not have that eye all-seeing, and therefore they see not the good that is in their fellow men, but the evil that is there they see and amplify it and add to the burden and care of that precious one who needs their comfort then and not their condemnation. Where are thine accusers? There are none, O Lord. Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. And thus, as I come to you, one who loves light more than darkness, I am determined, if I do naught else, to anchor in your consciousness the import of obedience to the Word of God, that ye be not only hearers of the sacred Word, but be doers of it at all times, not only in the times when the light is pouring forth and the glory of God is streaming out with the supernal radiance of his love, but also in those moments when, either deliberately through cosmic intent as a test, or because of the closets of night which surround you, you cannot see or feel the eternal presence. I say, walk not in darkness then, but walk in the light, and practice not to deceive or to defile the sacred radiance of God which clothes you all round about. Recognize that the light of God is within you, and if you qualify that light with shadowed substance, it but hinders the time of the appearing of your robes of light, that shall raise you up and transmute you into that realm where all care shall cease, and you shall become a part of the eternal presence, to render service of universal love on worlds that are numberless and fair, where in the mighty temples of the air angelic beings shall commune with you everywhere, and joy shall be born on wings of song so lovely as to defy all that the world has produced, which is lovely and inspired. But God's power, blazing forth its light with paeans of fire, brings forth the celestial right of man into reality, a dawn that sweeps swiftly toward the zenith, and then unto the setting of the perfect day, when the full-orbed splendor of each man and woman arrays them in the Christ robes that are the regenerative power of light, the sun presence, the eternal sun robing each one, and bringing then to others who have just begun to see the dawn of consciousness within their being, a new sense of service and love. For you shall serve above as you have been served, and be a part of the celestial realm, no more to go out from the city fair, the city foursquare, where the light shines forth from every side, and all is purified and good. Then, blessed ones, the universe shall be understood within the cube of your being, and within the circle, and you will know the meaning of Saint Germain's own blessed admonishment concerning the squaring of the circle. The rhythms of the universe are so magnificent, so glorious, so precious. I ask you, blessed ones, that you clasp your hands now together, as in an attitude of prayer. I ask you to pause, for what I have to bring is not yet complete, but it shall be. I call now to all the angelic beings that have remained in the atmosphere, tier on tier above us, that they prepare to descend with their blessing of light. Angels of light from Michael's band descend. Angels of light from Jophiel's band defend. Angels of light from Chamuel's heart appear. Angels of light from Gabriel's celestial sphere. Angels of light, so wondrous and fair, from the heart of Lord Zadkiel are here. Angels of light, from Uriel's radiance, shed forth thy purity, and let all see that light compasses me and all. A vast sea of wonder and infinite power of light, dissolving the pall of human gloom and erasing from the screen of life the sense of human doom that condemns men to a fate that is worse than death, to live and not to know the secrets that are kept by God reserved for them to share. I say to live and not to know the joys of heaven is indeed a state far worse than death, and yet men have chosen this in ignorance, not knowing the fullness of God's love. Down through the centuries, O blessed ones, there have been men and women, quite numberless in one sense of the word, for they have not all been upon this planet, but upon many systems of worlds, who have by the power of an active faith drawn forth the power of light within themselves and clothed themselves with immortality, although they did not first manifest it. For in the creation of the individual and the conferment of free will, there is usually an episode of struggle where the tiny ego self desires to stretch its limbs of being and experience various happenings in the world of form. These, by comparison to the eternal eras of time, the aeons of cosmic identity, are but a burst of light in a darkened sky, a mere speck appearing and then vanishing away. For immortality is the full light of day, and there is no need then for any to have fear, for the presence of God is right here, right within you and all around you, and lifts you up into that light until all density is gone and the whiteness of His glory shines forth from you. O blessed ones, I come tonight to clear your minds of the densities that have far too long occupied your mind with disconcerting reasons, and I give you a toast to the Lord of hosts, that when you drink this communion cup to its fullness, you may know that there is no need for a human excuse. For God has determined to give to all mankind whom He has created by the power of light the fullness of His own grace, all that He is. There is no intent in the divine presence to hold back any grace or any blessing from any individual anywhere. Therefore, none are excluded save they who by their own misshapen ideas exclude themselves and do not sense the great majesty of the eternal presence in His never-failing love, as He calls all home unto Himself. And yet I say to you, as you take a measured beat of the heart of the world, recognize how few have the light and knowledge of the I Am presence, as is given to you to accept and to understand. This is a splendor shining from the mind of God, which ought to flood this land and all lands with the holy light of God. For only by being and the relationship of being and the holy link of being, as it is a part of the eternal presence, can man come to know and appreciate the gifts which God intends to bestow upon him. Did not St. Paul, in his own dissertations to the early Christian church, declare, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, if I have not charity, I am become as a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. Know then, O blessed ones, that all knowledge and all power and all outer conditions shall pass away and vanish away before the eternal presence, and every island shall be moved out of its place, and the sea shall be no more, and the dry land shall be heaped up, and there shall be no space or place, for all is rolled up as a scroll into the great light of God from whence it came. And unless an individual has established their anchor point within the center of God's own heart, when all is rolled up into a scroll, the individual identity of that person is in essence temporarily lost, until restored once again to a realm of opportunity on some planetary system or world somewhere. I say to you, blessed ones, you are indeed natives and citizens of eternity. You are natives of God, and there is no possibility that by absence from your own holy land, the land of light which gave you birth, that you can ever be aught but a wanderer across the trackless spaces of time, until you anchor your hearts within God's own heart with all of the full intensity of your being. I remind you of Ananias and Sapphira, who came before Peter and thought that they could deceive God. Strange as it may seem to you, blessed ones, there are yet individuals of a religious nature who have a very certain measure of sincerity, who seem to feel that they can deceive God and hold back a part of the price, a part of themselves, reserved in their own consciousness, just in case the reality of God would not truly be. There are individuals who feel that they ought to serve some religious activity because they believe there is a possibility of God existing, but they entertain secret doubts as to his reality. They are trying to keep one foot in heaven and one foot upon earth, and they are about to lose both of their feet and be cut off from walking upon the pathway of being if they are not careful. These individuals are often referred to in the Scriptures as spouts without water, as clouds that are carried about by a wind, as stars to whom is reserved the mists of darkness forever. For until they come to the point where they can recognize the unfailing light of God, there is naught but a curtain of shadow that blackens their own mind and heart. You see then, beloved ones, these individuals who were cherished as you are by God and need and require the great loving ministrations of his hand, need the holy prayer which can come forth from your hearts in order to give them their freedom. They cannot possibly come to the knowledge of God without a special boost, an assist from your octave that shall enable them to have and to know the wondrous treasure which you have and share. Your own beloved Ilarion, in his temple of majesty upon Crete, is so grateful for every jot and tittle of energy which you invoke on behalf of the agnostics and atheists of the world, whose lot is indeed a sorry one. For every year, any number of those individuals are they who leap from the bridges and buildings of the world in an act of suicide. The suicide entity then is often fed by the release of energy from such as these. And you must understand how important it is that you use the power of light and Archangel Michael's sword to combat the very vicious action of the various entities which flow forth to do battle with mankind and to bring about his utter destruction. Now, blessed ones, it is indeed a great mistake and error for mankind who are aware of the wondrous, all-seeing eye of God and the love that God has in his heart and the beauty of his creation to not recognize the elements of human creation which have brought about every single act of misery that has ever been created upon this planet or any other part of the universe. Oh, blessed ones, I must tell you tonight that many of you are indeed babes when it comes to understand the great light of God that is in the universe. There are so many parts of this solar system that you do not yet know that I simply must bubble over with the effervescence of heaven to tell you that you must search the heavens for the great light of God and know that you can find it everywhere, but you must also recognize and not be babes in the woods that there is a sinister action wherever individuals exist who are in the state of becoming, for the very fact that individuals have not yet externalized their own God-given facilities and accepted the fullness of their own mighty I Am presence shows that they yet lack the perfection of that presence. And it is this lack of perfection which causes them to perform acts of error and ignorance. And therefore evil does not exist in the realm of God's mind or God's heart or God's eye. It exists in the double vision of mankind and the double set of standards which they have set up and have lived in and have wallowed in together with all of the misery that accompanies it. Now I say, I am the Queen of Light, and I come tonight to this planet blazing the eyes of God's light everywhere and determined to see mankind have a transfusion of the sacred fire into the very center of their being, so that they will do something about these sordid conditions which exist upon this planet. I do not ask you to clean up the entire universe, for there are other committees and groups established for the perfection and the correction and adjustment of conditions in other areas of space. But I tell you, you have a certain very definite responsibility to Virgo and Pillur. And if you will recognize that responsibility before God, you will see that together with Saint Germain, there is established in this day and age a very definite corrective cosmic action that shall bring about a full measure of correction of those various discordant manifestations which have occurred in society. These manifestations have occurred in the governments of the entire world, for there is not a single spotless government. They have occurred in the religions of the world, for there is not a single spotless religion. And I am referring here to the individuals embodied in form who are actually presenting the faith to mankind. But I assure you, blessed ones, that there are very definitely levels and grades of consciousness in the various servants of the various religions of the world. Some of these are very close to the heart of God, and their heart beats as one with Him. They are yet finishing up the final rites to their perfection, whereas others are yet in the degradation of deceit and the practice of a most intense and inharmonious action. I tell you, there are some individuals on this planet who actually think that they do God's service by calling for the dissolvement of the bodies of other individuals who do not agree with them. There are individuals, blessed ones, who practice a form of black magic that exists in many parts of this planet to the present hour. And therefore there is such a need for mankind to invoke a spirit of cosmic purity, to keep the flame of the Holy Spirit blazing within their consciousness, to have the crystal helmet upon their head that shall repel every negative suggestion before it can act, and will cause them not to accept the idea of ignorance or illness or deceit or the need to submit to mankind's foolishness, but will overthrow all of that foolishness by the power of light, which is a Christ action of the threefold flame as it blazes forth within your heart. Now, blessed ones, I tell you, when will you awaken to the fact that at the specific moment when you are receiving dictations is the time for you to anchor in your feeling world the full intensity of our release, that you will have it at the specific moment when you will need it and will not again return to the outer consciousness of the world and all of its discord and generation which is opposed to the mighty light of God and its unfolding banner. I tell you, blessed ones, you have got to call unto God for an anchoring of this energy in your world, that you will not release it. For I tell you that there are denizens of the deep, forces of darkness and shadow, that cluster around wherever the light is released. And as soon as the doors of this building are opened and you flood forth from this place, they will immediately attempt to reach through your aura and entice you to engage in some form of activity, either of gossip or of anger or temptation, whereby they can break the seal of the magic presence that is anchored around you and draw and siphon off that holy energy which I am releasing to you tonight. This is what has occurred down through the days since we first came forth with our wondrous messages through another channel of light. And you know of whom I am speaking. I refer to a certain activity which I do not choose to name for various reasons, for it is well known to you. And therefore I call to your attention tonight that the great white brotherhood, in its wondrous outpouring, has found it necessary to bring forth the Summit Lighthouse activity, that it might weld together a band of men and women dedicated to the holy purposes of God and determined to keep this earth free for the sake of St. Germain and all humanity. I am the Queen of Light, and I love you with an intense love, an action of the sacred fire. I also am a mother, a cosmic mother, and I was, while embodied in form, an earthly mother on several occasions, and I know the intense love that a mother feels for her child. But that love is expanded in cosmic dimensions and service to include the mankind of this planet. For I remember well when many of you were born and came forth. I remember the light in your own mother's eye, and I remember the service of the angels as they came to you, for they knew in advance that you would be drawn toward a greater and more holy aspect of the light than the ordinary man and woman. Therefore I say to you, it is this sacred charge, it is this wondrous fiat, it is this great overflowing love of God, it is this intense action of the angelic host, it is this magnificent power that has blazed forth and watched over you like a star from on high, that must be respected and revered and adored and loved. For after all, blessed ones, it is only by love and reciprocation and adoration and the fullness of consecration that you shall be able to live up to the high standard which God has set for you. For He knows in His intense love for you that you will one day become an integral part of His own great heart, and that you will assist in the expansion of His flame in many parts of the universe which you do not even now know exist. O precious ones, fragments are dropped, fragments of the eternal knowledge. Bit by bit they come down to your consciousness, sparkling iridescent jewels of eternal loveliness. They come forth, and mankind, in their own lack of understanding or appreciation, sometimes nuzzle them as do swine, pushing them to one side and saying, we will reserve these for another time, when perhaps we will wiser be and understand the mysteries of eternity. We will turn aside now from this, for we have more interesting occupations. Oh, blessed ones, what is a greater or a more interesting occupation than the unravelment of your own immortal destiny, the calling forth by the drawing down of the cosmic thread of light from your own eternal presence, the bringing into your heart's chalice of that pure white intense light, the expansion of that light, the filling of the holy grail of your being with this consecrated sacred fire. the pouring of that sacred fire through the network of the arterial system, through the nerves and the parts of your body, until you feel it flood to the very tips of your fingers, down through your toes, up to the top of your head, feeling it pierce out through the gloom of human maya and oppression that surrounds you, cutting you free and removing the animal forms from your electronic belt that has surrounded you, so that you have not known all that you have created of human discord. You do not realize the terrible, intense action of the sinister force that has often deceived you by ignorance and caused you, when you thought you did God service, to do him great disservice. O blessed ones, the light of God is the light of God, and in that light there is not any shadow whatsoever of turning. When mankind think that they are justified in performing some act by a rationalization of why that act was necessary, and that act is directly a breaking of the eternal covenant, I tell you they shall not escape until they have paid the last full farthing of the law's requirements. Blessed ones, one of the greatest and most discouraging aspects of the present manifestation of Christianity is the fact that they do not understand the meaning of atonement as at one-ment. They seem to feel that the Christ manifestation was intended to be a sacrifice for them offered unto God, and that all they need do is to accept that sacrifice and then live as they please. They do not realize that the Christ came to fulfill the law, not to break the law. The law of God written within your hearts and minds is a sacred covenant of being. It is directly linked to mysterious, scientific, cosmic laws, which I assure you are so tremendous that if I were to tell you about them, I do not think you would sleep for several nights, for they are most wondrous to contemplate. Yet there would be no particular gain to your life streams for me to release this information to you tonight, for you must yet dwell upon the necessary aspects of perfecting and purifying your worlds. So long as there remains in your world shadowed substance which requires purification, so long as there remains upon this planet individuals who need illumination, we must continue to pour out our illumination and to meet the requirements of man's need. There are curious individuals who have some form of quirk where they desire to know everything there is to know about the universe, and yet with all their acquisition of knowledge, they have not performed the necessary steps of the purification of their worlds. These individuals must awaken to the truth of their being and recognize that seriousness with God is the fulfillment of the great law. We do not say that you need not laugh, that you must close your consciousness to the idea of happiness. My dear ones, to be happy is also godly, but you must not deceive yourselves and walk in darkness when the light of God is all around you, and the light can only serve you by cosmic law as you serve it. Therefore, tonight I have brought to you a specific action to intensify the power of God within your minds, to let you see the crystal clear aspects of His law, so that in this Summit Lighthouse activity you will become an integral part of the Great White Brotherhood through living the breathing out picturing of the kingdom of God upon earth. This means that you must discipline your being and not incur the displeasure of the cosmic law by manifestations of anger or impatience or human discord or fault-finding or complaining or recognition of mankind's faults. You must walk and shake yourselves and walk in darkness when the light of God is all around you, and the light can only serve you by cosmic law as you serve it. Therefore, tonight I have brought to you a specific action to intensify the power of God within your minds, to let you see the crystal clear aspects of His law, so that in this Summit Lighthouse activity you will become an integral part of the Great White Brotherhood through living the breathing out picturing of the kingdom of God upon earth. This means that you must discipline your being and not incur the displeasure of the cosmic law by manifestations of anger or impatience or human discord or fault-finding or complaining or recognition of mankind's faults. You must walk and shake the dust of the road from your garments and purify them with the immortal radiance of eternity. And then you will hear the strains from home wafting to you over the eternal ether waves, descending to you through the heart of the Master from insular space. You will feel the power of the angel Deva of the Jade Temple. You will feel the power of the regenerative Christ. You will know why the great golden eagle from Venus had a part of its body of violet substance. You will understand what it means to be a Lord of the Flame, as the 7 holy Kumaras. You will understand that we are from time to time periodically intensifying the action of the Summit Lighthouse activity, as we are doing this night, for a specific and holy purpose. And you will recognize the part that you are to play initially in that purpose. I do not say that you will know all that you shall be, but you shall know that which you ought to be now, and you will begin to externalize that action of light until you yourselves can be a vessel in the Master's hands to bring forth peace over the land, that wherever you move, there may flower in this land the eternal compact of heaven's band of light. And I have revealed to you what it means to sail across the sea as some of your pilgrim forebears did, and to be they who may flower in the consciousness of God and behold their spines erect as God's rod, climbing the ladder of light thereon to escape into the infinite power of space, hallowed by His grace, transfigured and transfixed they rise, victoriously ascended into the skies, one with God, a majority well done. O count well done, Saint Germain, truly thou hast builded majestically, and the tiny tree thou planted once is spread, though it were but a mustard seed of faith originally, until its branches have covered the earth, and the birds of the air, they who desire to fly higher, nest in the branches of thy love, nestling in comfort as a dove, and carrying the precious green bond of peace, the serenity of the soul, in whom strife has ceased, for the middle wall has fallen. and there streams forth from the Holy of Holies the splendor of the sun. I am about to withdraw my radiance quite suddenly. Those of you who have determined to hold it will do so, if that determination be enough. Those who have not will lose it quite suddenly, but may regain it again through service and concentration upon the message I have brought. For it is not I that have spoken, but it is what God hath wrought. Thank you, and good evening.